Hello everyone and welcome to my presentation on the music video I Want to Break Free by Queen, released in 1984. Today I'll be discussing the impact that the music video has had on LGBT issues and how it's affected the LGBT community, both in the 80s and in the modern day. I will now provide a brief outline and overview of the music video I Want to Break Free for those who are unfamiliar with it. The music video features the four band members of Queen, Freddie Mercury, Brian May, Roger Taylor and John Deacon, who are dressed in this music video in more feminine attire. The music video was directed by David Mallett and it was shot in May in 1984 at Lighthouse Studios in London, and it ended up costing in total £100,000. The video involves the band dressing up in drag. Freddie and Brian were dressed as housewives, as you can see here on the right, and John Deacon was dressed as a grandmother and Roger Taylor was dressed as a young schoolgirl. And they are all portraying women who are victims of this capitalist world where they feel entrapped with themselves and to the household. And they're actually portraying British characters off of a British TV show called Coronation Street, which I assume most of you will have no idea what it is. It's basically just a TV show about working class people in a working class area, and it's a very honest and down-to-earth show about true British people, and they're just the normal average British person, and so it's something that the British audience really relate to, but I think is more lost on the American audience. But we see these band members go through the house and they dust and they vacuum, and we can see them cooking, and they're doing these typical feminine chores. And then we have these cutaway scenes of them dreaming of a different life, of breaking free, and then performing artistically in this dreamlike state where they're expressing their true self, which they can't express in their true everyday life through their structured roles that they're given. I will be arguing that Queen highlight queer issues through the medium of clothing to undermine already established gender stereotypes, and how we view men and females as male and females based off of their clothing and based off of how they perform and act, much like Judith Butler's theory. I would be arguing that they do this undermining of gender stereotypes and highlighting queer issues through the idea of escapism, through the portrayal of the characters having this dreamlike state in which they can escape for a moment from their true life and their true reality, which is something that many queer people feel they can relate to. America and the UK have different reactions to this music video. We have this quote here from Brian May, who was told by people in the Midwest of America that they couldn't play it, that it looks quote unquote homosexual. The song and the music video was so outrageously defiant of gender stereotypes that many American music stations felt they could not play it, and that led to the ultimate statistics, which you'll see in the next slide. The statistics here highlight the disparity across the countries of how well the song I Want to Break Free did. We can see that in most European countries it did very well. However, when we get to the US and Canada, it charted at 45 as its best, and Canada it charted at 26, showing a huge difference and contrast in the reaction to this music video. The music video discusses the idea of these women breaking free from gender roles, which gender is very closely intertwined with queer issues, and some people definitely believe that if you can unpack these gender issues, you can start to unpack queer issues. I'd like to also say that these are men dressing up as women in the 1980s. This is a big statement piece, and even though they might be portraying characters off of a screen that British people can relate to, it has an international effect, clearly shown by the chart levels, that some audiences are just not ready to receive yet. Some audiences think it's too overbearing an idea, that they cannot relate to this and they cannot support the idea of men dressing up as women. But this is really a time where we see mass media really starting to incorporate ideas of cross-dressing, and it opens up this platform and this stage for us to start to talk about queer issues more, because we can see that the UK and European countries are more accepting and receptive to this idea, but an American audience instantly are fearful of what they see. They see a man dressing up as a woman, and that is defying both gender stereotypes, and it's also defying what it means to be queer and how Americans react to queer issues and queer people, and that just highlights further the need for us to discuss queer issues in the 1980s. We can also see this music video representing queer issues in the idea of escapism and feeling trapped, and we also see in the music video I Want to Break Free clothing as an escapism, representing this subtle yet blatant trans storyline that we see throughout. We see this woman dressed in feminine attire who is fixed to the household every day, who has to clean, who has to cook, And in her dreams, she escapes and she is a man who's free, who's expressive, and is the way that she ideally would like to be. And then the idea that Freddie Mercury is a man dressing as this very woman who then dreams to be a man is just adding another layer of transgender representation. And it also adds to this idea and feeling that many queer people can relate to of confusion and not feeling assigned to your gender and not feeling that you can relate to your appearance sometimes. It creates this idea of confusion which the music video encapsulates perfectly, and it provides this idea of that you want to escape from this all, and him dressing up as this woman provides the escapism. And Warner states that this idea of normal standards creates shame for queer people. Normal standards and saying that a man can do this and a woman can do that, a huge impact on the mental health of queer people and makes some queer people severely depressed. In this music video, we see clothing as a medium to represent queer issues. Queen are defying gender stereotypes in order to tackle and to highlight queer issues. Through dressing in more feminine clothing, it provides this space in which we can start to rework what it really means to be a man and a woman and create more fluid boundaries of these ideas. The more fluid boundaries we have of the idea of a man and woman, like Sherry Eisen says, gender is a huge three-dimensional space, too big to be bounded by the concepts of male and female, which is what Queen is certainly embodying in their music video. They are certainly trying to say that just because you dress up in a certain way or you appear in a certain way, that it doesn't change who you are, it doesn't change how you can be interpreted. Judith Butler says gender is performative, and that's truly what comes to light here. We can see this represented so well in them performing like women and doing these house tasks, but also showing that they want to break free from this mold and this set structure of I have to wake up every day and clean the whole house from top to bottom. And that's what we want to break free from. This is what the story of the music video is really trying to hit home for the audience. Although the primary motivation for dressing in feminine clothing in this video may not have been directly linked to the queer community, there is no way to definitively know this, it certainly provides representation in many different ways. Even though these men are not transgender, they're still providing a different way of defying social stereotypes, social gendered stereotypes. And this is extremely important for the queer community and helps us to tackle these queer issues if we undermine these gender stereotypes. And given the time context, we have to think, although we might think quite critically of these men who, most of them have nothing to do with the queer community, although we might think of them critically to be expressing their ideas upon this, any representation at the moment is getting the word out there, it's getting a dialogue and a discussion page out there for us all to be able to start to work through these queer issues. And given the time context, again, this is an incredibly bold issue to be displaying for a band that has nothing to do with politics. But the music video actually highlights how ways in which queer issues can be dealt with, and it highlights how we can make the queer community, much like Warner tries to argue, to be accepted into what is socially defined as normal. Obviously, there are certainly some issues with the term normal. The term stems from many generations of capitalism and patriarchal views, but we can, through the use of this music video, we can understand how we can make the queer community, again, like Warner argues, more accepted into what is socially defined as normal, has always fundamentally been used as a tool of oppression. However, as Warner argues, if we can use this to incorporate queer community within the idea of normal, it should help to diminish the queer issues that queer people face in their everyday life. Through Queen, who all identified as men, dressing up as women, this can be seen as an understanding of the contemporary queer culture, which is represented within the documentary Paris is Burning. We see this ideal within the queer culture of either potentially passing or expressing themselves in different ways that they can't feel expressed in their normal day life, and that is a complete allegory to the story that we see in I Want to Break Free. We can really see through this music video that there is obviously no shame in having a dream of a reality where you are free from all social standards. Like Warner states, if we can implement the queer community to within what is socially defined as normal, then we can get rid of the queer issues that is the shame that surrounds queer people and our community. However, I would like to say I personally would argue, using Hall's idea that queer theories demand a questioning of the conventional, we should challenge any structures, such as normal, that are used to pass judgment on one another, because these regimes of normal are harmful to queer people fundamentally. And if we encapsulate queer people within the regime of normal, this is only going to leave judgment and pain for others who aren't within the queer community. Judgment is just displaced, it's not replaced. Therefore, in understanding Hall's work, I take the view that it would be more beneficial to tackle queer issues rather than work to ignore them. In defying social norms, like how Queen do in the I Want to Break Free music video, we can start to really tackle the roots of shame that are intangibly linked to this idea of normal. Therefore, Queen's music video provide representation of a woman who wants to break free from socially inscribed norms and helps to dismantle systems of oppression with the idea of normal against queer people, and enables us to work to diminish the issues they face in everyday life.